Good morning and welcome to another Mocha Money Monday. I'm your host, Ashley Scott, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing none other than Atlanta's own Sunday Jones. Now, this prominent figure here is a mover, she's a shaker, she is out here helping people grind, okay? She is making a positive impact with her organizations. Dope Girls Grinding and Prison Brat Foundation. And of course, she is the host and the owner of FIYE Radio, flavor in your ear. Okay. So I'm really excited to have Miss Sunday Jones as our guest today, where she's going to be talking about the most important thing besides getting to the bag, which is remembering to check in on you. So good morning, Miss Sunday Jones. How are
Grand
you?
Rising.
Hey, I'm so glad you're here with me today so we can talk about this hot topic about really remembering to check in on you. What made you want to talk about this topic today?
Uh, I think it's not talked about enough, number one, and you can't really get to the bag unless you're checking in on you. So it's important to just check in on self, make sure you're loving on self, you are not so checked in on everybody else and what they have going on. So it's just very, very important for us to tap in on this topic.
I love this. So give the people a little bit more about your background. Where are you from? How
Oh
did you get
my.
involved in these organizations that you founded? And what's your story?
Oh, my story. Oh, okay. She said, I am Sunday Jones. I am Atlanta native. Um, However, I was raised in New York, in the Bronx, in Manhattan. I also spent my summers in Cleveland, Ohio. My mom did a lot of time in prison, so that is how I came to found the Prison Brat Foundation, understanding that still the connection still needs to be made between parents and children, even though there's an incarceration in place
Mhm.
on either end. Um, so I'm a round the way girl, a little bit of rough edges. Um, and as far as Dope Girls Grinding goes, I love hip hop. I love music. I come from that background. Um, and I love putting things together. So that is my events production company where also I bring other females together that do some of those same things, whether it be DJing, whether it be photography, whether it be whatever that goes into the entertainment business, and we put things together. Showing young ladies and women that women can be dope together and we don't have to be separated. We can come together and do whatever it is that we want to do. And then we have FIYE Radio, who I am the co-owner with Tiny Tanya and the real Sean D. So that came about actually me and Tiny and shout out to Janice Revere and Sajada Jael. We started that with them. And then those ladies wanted to go in a separate direction. And then me and Tiny were still there. And then we invited in Sean D.
Okay.
So some dope experiences, some dope lanes. How I got there is the grace of God. No other way, really,
Mhm.
and hard work and effort.
Okay. Hard work and effort is what many of us grind using every day. Hard work and
Yes,
effort, hard work and effort, hard work and effort. It's like the formula for most dope black girls, right? What
yes.
I think is really important is right when we're out here working hard, putting in all this effort is your topic, right? Remembering to check in on you. So
Oh,
can
yeah.
you talk about a time where you might have forgot to check in on you Sunday?
Woo. Um, there were many times that I forgot to check in on me, but one of the most significant times that I can remember and why this is so important for me is that I was in a relationship and married for 22 years.
Mm,
And in that time, some was good, some was bad, was not all bad. But in that time, I got lost in trying to keep a relationship together. Um, and us as women, and I'm sure men do it too. But I can only speak from my perspective. Women tend to um, in intercept
Mhm.
themselves so deeply into something, whether it be a relationship, a job, or whatever that looks like. We get so deep in that we begin to transform into whatever the other side is. So
Right.
it's a relationship, or man, we're so stuck on trying to, make a relationship work. We tend to forget who we are and put so much into that, and we start to become another person. And
Mhm.
so it's not the person that we set out to be, and we start to do things like other people versus doing things like ourselves. And then the
Mhm.
next thing you know, you have forgotten what your journey, what your path, what your purpose is. And you have began to build a whole nother journey that's not really significant to you. And so you have to stop and take a moment and say, oh, who am I? I have checked in. I'm checking in on everybody else and their baggage and whatever it is that they have going on. But who am I? Let me
Right.
stop and check in on myself. So I had to stop and I had to check out on them and I had to check in on me, remember who I was, remember why I'm here, figure out what my purpose was. I had to start all over again because so much time has went by. And I'm like, who am I now? What is it that I like? What is it that I love to do?
Mhm.
And we get so lost, and I just think that that is so important. So that's like a really significant time that I was like, okay, check out on that and check in on this, because if I don't check in on this, I'm going to be lost, and I'm
Well,
not going to.
I would love to go a little deeper because I know even as a wife, somebody who's currently married, two kids, I do take time to check in on me. But how did you make that transition where you recognize that it was no longer healthy for you, right? I think sometimes you might check in and we have all of these things in our society when we think about religion, spirituality, when we think about just the current context of the world and people wanting to fight for love, people wanting to fight for their marriage, people wanting to fight for these kids. And it's always the fight, right? Like, oh, no
Yes,
matter what, I'm trying to fight for my stuff.
yes,
I'm struggling. It's this constant um activity to
yes,
keep things and not even keep things the same, but to keep things together, to keep things from falling apart. How
yes.
did you transition out of the I'm fighting to save my marriage, or I'm fighting to save my kids, or I'm fighting to save my job, or whatever it is that we so constantly fight for? How do you make that transition to go from fighting to being in the flow, from fighting to being at ease with what might come, from fighting to recognizing that I have to do what's best for me rather than keeping up this fight?
Um, the inner me. So when you get to the point where you're feeling miserable or you're feeling like something is missing from your life and you just don't know what that is, you don't know which way to go, but you feel it because we have instincts and intuitions, right? And we
Mhm.
feel when something isn't right, but we tend to ignore it, and
Yeah.
but we feel it, And so when you start to have that feeling of if you're on a job, oh my God, if you get up every day to go to work and you're like, oh my God, I can't. If you're doing that, I don't want to go to work every day. You need to check in on you. If you're in
Mhm.
a relationship and you're feeling like it's not working and your intuitions are telling you different things, you may want to check in on you. So when God gives you those instincts and those intuitions, they're for purpose. And we have to listen to them. And I think when I started to listen to myself, that is when I was able to make that transition of, okay, it's time to check in on me. So we have to do a better job of listening to ourselves, listening to our intuitions and our instincts because they're not going to lie to us. Those are the
Mhm.
things that won't lie to you. Um, it's spirit. We call it instincts, intuition, but it's spirit on the inside of you telling you something's not right.
Mhm.
Something just isn't right. And so then you have to you have to listen. Number one, that's the main thing, is please listen to yourself. And then you have to start to do a little bit of work, every day. Because now you have to figure out, now that you listen to yourself, you have to figure out what the next steps are. What is it that's making me miserable exactly? Why do I feel this way? What do I need to do? Who am I? You might have to go on a couple of dates with yourself. Seriously, you might have to, just to figure out what it is that you like again, and what it is that, if I leave this job, what is it that's going to make me happy when I leave? If I leave this relationship, what am I going to do with myself? So you just have to kind of get to know yourself again, put a plan in place, and follow the process. Doesn't mean that the first plan is going to work. If it doesn't work, it's okay. It's just like taking a business venture. If the first way you try to do it, it doesn't mean it's not for you. It just means you may need to find another way to do it. So don't give up on yourself, but come up with a plan, follow the plan, and then sometimes you may have to alter the plan because you may be taking a left when you should be taking a right. So, but that's the steps.
Hmm. And so I guess if there was a formula, you kind of gave it, follow your intuition. When that spirit tells you something, don't just second guess it or throw it under the rug, but really listen to your inner self.
Yeah,
And then, I love what you said about taking some dates for yourself, learning who you are again and what makes you joyful, what makes you happy. One of the things I'd love to hear more from you Sunday on is just your perspective of what's next, right? Because sometimes people will decide, like, yeah, I'm ready to check in on me. I'm ready to, make some changes. But what are some strategies that you would suggest for someone who recognizes when they did check in on me that, hey, I'm ready to move into something different or I'm ready to do something different? What are some strategies that you would give them for communicating? How do you tell someone that has been so used to getting everything they want, how they want it, when they want it from you, that things are about to shift?
that's tricky. Very carefully. Because in checking in on you, you got to know that it may hurt some other people.
Mhm.
Like you said, it may cause a shift depending on what it is. Even if it's a job, that you might be potentially getting ready to leave because you got to check in on you and you got to do something different. You got to let these people know that, hey, I may only be here 2 more weeks or 30 more days, or whatever that looks like, and you may not be able to fulfill that,
Mhm.
and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. We potentially want to give a job 2 weeks or 30 days, depending on what your stature in the company is or what have you. But sometimes you can't do it. I mean, you just can't. I know for myself, I tried to do that, and I was like, I'm gonna give them 30 days. Because I'm a very, I am very follow, like by the book. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give 30 days. I'm a manager in this place. I'm running this, and I'm gonna give them 30 days so they can find somebody to replace me. But if I'm too miserable to do that, I can't
Mhm.
fulfill 30 days. I was able to fulfill two. I said I'm gonna give you 30 days, and when I went back, it was oh man, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm gonna put forth my best effort, and I'm gonna do it. And then the very next day, 2 days later, I couldn't do it. So, because I was miserable on the inside, and I'm not going to, you have to make a choice that says, I'm not going to continue to be miserable for other people or other things or other places, because miserable does a lot. It does a lot to your health. It does a lot to your mental. It does a lot to your physical. It's just a lot. So you have to be willing to sacrifice um, you feeling bad about somebody else for yourself. So
Mhm. Mhm.
in a relationship, you might have to be a little bit more careful, depending on your situation. But it's very important to be very honest and have real talk conversations with people. about how you're feeling and what's going on, even before you start feeling miserable. But if you've gotten to that point, it's very important that you do so. And if you're in anything, let's say abusive or something like that, you might want to have somebody there with you to have those conversations so that you can remain safe. Because I know for a lot of women and men or what have you, a lot of people are in those type of situations where they're scared to move, scared to leave, and so they don't know how, who, what, when, where, or how, and they just know that they want to go. So you might got to sneak out in the middle of the night. It might not be a conversation, but if it's a situation where you can have that conversation and you're safe, then have it. It's important to have it. And it kind of is what it is because you can no longer sacrifice yourself for somebody else, your happiness for something or somebody else. It's just not good. It's not healthy, at all. So you have to do what it is that's necessary for you to do for you. Because if you're not happy, whoever you're in a relationship with, they're not going to be happy because you can't give them happiness because you can't make people happy anyway. Everybody has to make themselves happy. So in order to do that, you can't be miserable, right? In order for you to love someone effectively, you have to love yourself effectively. That goes for your spouse, your children, your family members. If you have a job, you can't operate effectively if you don't want to go every day. You're gonna half ass, excuse my French, you're gonna half it, you're gonna give them 25, 30, 50, whatever percentage you're gonna give them, but it sure ain't gonna be 100%. So you have to remember that you come first.
Mm. You come first. Are
Yeah.
there any last words of advice when you think about this topic of checking in with you and remembering to put yourself first that you want to leave our audience before we get out of here, Miss Sunday Jones?
Remember that you are the most important thing. There is only one you. There is no one else like you on the planet or beyond. No one can replicate you, duplicate you, or do what you do, how you can do it. So remember that checking in on you is the most important thing because if you're not okay, the energy that you bring won't be okay. And so, therefore, the people around you won't be okay. So be okay with you.
That's good. How do people get in touch with you? Are you a part of the Phenomenal Hughes Global Network Sunday?
Of course, I am. I love Phenomenal Hughes. I am phenomenal, and so are you.
And how can people get in touch with you?
OMG. I tell people all the time if you really need to contact me, you can get in contact with me at 678-471-2963. I'm an advocate for mental health, so I'm always reachable. If you want to get in touch with me on Instagram, you can do that at Sunday Jones is Life, at Dope Girls Grinding, at FYE Radio, and the Prison Brat Foundation.
All right. Is there anything that we can do to support your foundation today? Because I think what you're doing with Prison Brat is really important. How can people get involved and help that work?
You can call me, of course. But yes, we're always looking for volunteers, mentors, in any way. If you wanted to donate, any way that you wanted to be a part, you could be a part. It's just about bridging the gap, keeping families together, and making sure that kids are safe. The vision is the bond.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Sunday, for being my guest here at Mocha Money Monday podcast. And
Thank
thank
you for having
you.
me.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in. We are the Phenomenal Hughes Global Network brought to you by Wilson's Financial Group. You can catch us at our events on Wednesdays. We have our wonderful Wind Down Wednesdays, as well as our El Verde Supper Club. And of course, you can get the coaching and mentorship you need on your journey as an entrepreneur. And if you're ready to prepare for entrepreneurship, if you're pivoting into entrepreneurship, or if you've been an entrepreneur for years and you're ready to go to the next level and finally prosper like you've never prospered before, we got you, girl. Come on over to the Phenomenal Hughes Global Network. And if you're interested in being a guest on Mocha Money Monday podcast, go ahead and hit us up. We look forward to sharing your story with the world and for you joining our network where we are the epicenter of phenomenal women. So if you're phenomenal, come on over to the Phenomenal Hughes Global Network. See you soon.
Peace and
Peace.
love.